Good morning class, how are you today? Once again welcome to Handicraft. So, are you ready for our new lesson? Very good. Today we are going to discuss the steps in basic macrame knots and basketry weaving techniques and pattern. For our expectation at the end of the learning period, you should be able to apply the proper procedure in making basic macrame knots and basketry weaving technique. Discuss the steps in basic macrame knots and basketry weaving techniques, and illustrate the steps in macrame knots and basketry weaving. For a lark head knot, fold the cord in half and then fold the loop towards you over the dowel or anchor cord. Pass the two cord ends through the loop at the back and pull the cords to tighten the knot. For stake and strand, repeat these motion with weaver B. Repeat these motion with weaver C. Beginning at the initial stake, place 3 weavers behind 3 consecutive stakes. Pick up weaver A, bring it in from tog 2 stakes, over the other 2 weavers, and behind the next stake, and then to the front. Time's up. Let us check. For square knot. 3. 1. 2. 4. For lark head knot. 1. 2. For stake and strand. 2. 3. 1. Now let me know who got perfect. Very good, so we are done here. Now let's proceed to recap. For your direction, read the questions carefully and choose the best answer. Write your answer on your quiz notebook. For number 1. It is 2 half knots in opposite directions. A. Flat knot. B. Half knot. C. Lark head knot. D. Square knot. Number 2. Consists of 2 half knots, one to the left and one to the right. A. Flat knot. B. Half knot. C. Lark head knot. D. Square knot. Number 3. This method allows the use of a wide range of materials as long as they are flexible enough for the waft and rigid enough for the warp. A. Coiling. B. Plaiting. C. Stake and strand. D. Twining. Number 4. This weaving involves weaving wide materials, similar in shape to ribbons, such as palm, yucca, or flax. A. Coiling. B. Plaiting. C. Stake and strand. D. Twining. Number 5. This method is usually employed for softer materials such as grasses. A. Coiling. B. Plaiting. C. Stake and strand. D. Twining. Okay, let us check. For number 1. Letter D. Square knot. Number 2. Letter D. Square knot. Number 3. Letter C. Stake and strand. Number 4. Letter B. Plaiting. Number 5. Letter A. Coiling. For test 2 answers. Number 6. Lark's head knot. Number 7. Flat knot. Number 8. Alternating flat knot. Number 9. Spiral stitch. And for number 10 is half knot twist. Now let's move on to our lesson, which is steps in basic macrame knots and basketry weaving techniques and pattern. Knowing the steps in macrame knots and basketry weaving will help and guide you to make a lovely and perfect macrame knots and basketry weaving outcome. You'll be surprised just how often these simple knots are used in most projects. So if you can master these simple knots, you'll be on your way to becoming a macrame queen, or king. For basic macrame knots, we have first the square knot for the steps. Step 1. Take the string to the right and bring it under the string in the middle and over the string to the left. September 2nd. Take the string to the left and position it over the strings in the middle and through the loop of the first string. Pull it close. You're finished with a half square knot. Step 3. Now, you're going to do the same again, but mirrored. Take the string to the right, Place it over the string in the center, and place it to the left under the string. Step 4. Take the string to the left, put it under the middle string, and put it out through the loop of the last line. Pull close, and you're done with a square knot. For reverse lark's head knot. The head knot of the reverse lark, most often used to tie cords to a dowel or anchor rope, is used in the same way as the regular type, except from the back so that the bump is covered. For the steps. Step 1. Fold the cord in half and then fold the loop towards you over the dowel or anchor cord. Step 2. Pass the 2 cord ends through the loop at the back and pull the cords to tighten the knot. Next is alternating square knot. Rows of square knots can be offset to create a net-like pattern. For the steps. Step 1. Tie a series of square knots together. On the second row, using the outer working cord of each pair of adjacent square knots as filler cords and the nearest pair of filler cords as working cords, so that the second row of square knots is offset. Step 2. Tighten each knot, place it close to the first row to create a fine net, or position it further apart from the first row to create a looser net. Step 3. Continue alternating the filler and working cords used to tie the knots on every other row. Next is the half knot. For the steps. Step 1. Overlap the 2 ends over the support. Step 2. Pass one end form below the other. Step 3. Take it out. And Step 4. Pull the standing parts to tighten. Just follow the illustration above. For the steps of overhand knot. Step 1. Form a loop by passing the tag end over the standing part. Step 2. Tuck it inside the loop and pull it out completely. Step 3. Pull both ends to tighten. Next is the horizontal clove hitch. The horizontal clove hitch forms a straight line across the panel, with a filler cord running across it either left to right or right to left or bending back and forth. Follow the steps shown above. For the steps of horizontal clove hitch. Step 1. To make a line from left to right, use the furthest left cord as filler cord, keeping it horizontally in front of all the other cords on the panel. Use the next cord to the right as the working cord for the first clove hitch, first bringing it forward, up and around the filler cord towards the left. Pull the working cord to tighten the loop while tilting the filler cord slightly upwards. Step 2. Finish the first clove hitch by bringing the working cord around the filler cord again to the right of the first wrap, passing the end through the loop formed under the filler cord. Pull the working cord to secure the knot. Repeat steps 1 to 2 for each cord to the right and turn. Step 3. To make another line underneath the first, bend the filler cord in front of the other cords on the panel horizontally from right to left. Repeat steps 1 to 2, but beginning with the right hand cord and working each knot in opposite direction to the left. Now let's proceed to the basketry weaving technique. First is the coiling. For the steps. Step 1. Knot. Begin with raffia. Double a piece of raffia and twist, leaving a loop at one end. Tie an overhand knot 20 cm, form the loop. Step 2. Wrap. Start. Place one end of wrapper along core. Bind over core, working toward the end of the core, getting as close to B end as possible. Step 3. Thread one loose end of raffia in needle, hold the knot, the loop, and the other loose, and stitch through the knot's center for the back. Step 4. Bind it in the opposite direction, completely covering the core material. When enough core is covered, bend it into a tight core. Step 5. Stitch anti-clockwise around knot, putting needle through center from front to back. Keep knot flat. Mark starts with colored thread. Step 6. Thread needle with wrapper. Hold bound core in a tight circle. Make first few stitches around the core and through the center. For step 7. For the second round, the raffia, including loop, becomes the core. Stitch core to the top of the previous row, twisting the core before each stitch. And step 8. Working anti-clockwise, Stitch the working row to the circle through the center hole for one full around. Mark starting point with a thread. The below pictures is the sample of coiling stitches. We have lazy square stitch variation 1, open stitch, lazy square stitch variation 2, lace stitch, lazy square stitch variation 3, and figure 8 stitch. Plaiting weave. Be familiar with under and over weaving, as simple over 1 under 1 weave. The plain weave can be varied by the addition of color in one direction. The pieces are woven over 2 under 2, over 3 under 3, or over 4 under 4. Steps in twining. Step 1. Start with a weave done with 2 elements woven concurrently around the spokes. The weaving elements cross between the spokes for a half turn. Step 2. With the weave woven around the spokes, cross the spokes for a full turn as shown in the illustration. Steps in French randing and chasing. Step 1. Weave the first loop of the materials as shown on the right. Step 2. Weave the second loop of the materials over the first loop. Step 3. Weave it inside the second, over the third, and so on. For Step 4. Randing. Each round is worked by itself. Diagram on top, right, shows the direction of the weaver's motion. Step 5. Chasing. 2 rounds are worked at once. Lower weaver moves 4 spokes ahead, upper weaver catches up. So those are the steps in basic macrame knots and basketry weaving techniques. I hope that you will follow the procedures. And with that we are done with Module 12. I just hope you have truly learned the concept and values of today's session. Believing that you apply the knowledge that you have gained in this session. Thank you so much class for this wonderful session with you. Goodbye.